This is a rebroadcast of my live radio show that you can find on radioutd.com/tuner on Thursdays at 11 a.m. The Daily Flow is a series that will explore the very components that make us human. The arts, the emotion, the act of creation. These are subjects that I have tasked myself to cover every week. Personal reflection is an intimate experience, one that I have the responsibility of crafting a narrative of. I intend to treat this show as my own form of artistic expression, but keeping in mind that these aren't my stories to tell. I'm only sharing. Our journey begins with a UTD student who creates electronic music. His name is Russek.
I go by schmoop, which is spelled SCHMOOP. Okay. And that's just, when I was growing up, my dad used to call me schmoop, and he kind of like showed me the joy of music. So like I've just kind of held that as, my artist name, because that's like a pretty important part of my life.
So do you have like a classical root in music, or where does your history come from?
That is a good question, because actually in fourth grade, I think I started in third grade, I was doing piano lessons, and my instructor was like a virtuoso lady, and she was very strict on like how things should be, and I would always kind of trail off from just reading the music, and I would just play the whole melody that she had just played to me right back to her, and I'd start like adding, I'd just like be putting, chords or something under it, and she'd be like, no, you need to be reading the music, and I was just like, okay, and that kind of persisted for probably like a month and a half, but then she just snapped, and she couldn't take it. And she told my parents that I'm just unteachable. I'm unwilling to learn. And I was super upset. She just kind of dropped me. Like she was like, yeah, I won't even take your money anymore. Like I don't want to, which is, I don't know, that was a nuts thing. Cause I didn't really know what was going on. I was just like, oh, I guess I'm just not doing piano anymore. Cause I just wasn't, I guess, too bright.
Unteachable, wow.
Yeah.
And then, so after that, did you go into like band or anything like that through grade school?
I really, the one thing that I really wanted to do in middle school, I really did want to do band, because actually my dad did band. He played trombone. I really wanted to get into like band in like 7th grade. Never did it. Every time I tried to do it, my mom was like, no, because I was doing football at the same time, so she's just like worried about that, I guess. So I ended up just like focusing on football, and the whole time I was just like, I wish I did band. And then all through high school, I was like, oh, I wish I did band. Yeah. But I ended up taking music theory in like junior year of high school, and that was a super great like fundamental course in terms of music theory. I really loved that, because it just like solidified, I guess, the self-taught nature that I already have. Like it kind of just gave me a little more of a correct basis of what I already like did.
So where did this electronic style come from, would you say? Like what was your pathway to?
So I actually kind of started like working with audio in probably like 7th grade, and it was just like writing chip tunes, like video game music. That was kind of like the initial passion, I guess. The initial inspiration was just chiptunes, so I was just playing with like really simple sounds, like Game Boy sounds and stuff, and like writing melodies with it, and like making like little, bit crush drums or whatever. And then after that, I kind of had a phase in like old school hip hop and like underground kind of hip hop stuff, and that was probably from like 8th grade towards like most of 8th grade into like freshman year. And then freshman year I got really into like ambient and like break beats, like classic breakbeat stuff. and I don't know, the taste just kind of got weirder and weirder, kind of spun into a bunch of different styles, and I guess it's gotten to where it is now.
Take it to the grid. Take it to the data lines. I'ma take it to the grid. Let's go to the grid, yeah. What you browsing? Let's go through your browser history. You browse my Instagram, your data plan overflowing with joy. Slide in your DMs, I'm first place. Take it to the grid. Take it to my place. Take it to the grid. Take it to the data mines. That's right. Take it to the grid. Take it to the data mines. Take it to the grid. Browsing you in incognito. No one needs to know. No one needs to know. Who you spending all that bandwidth on, girl? What you downloading? Take it to the grid. Take it to the data mines. Let's see your browser history. We gon' make browser history.
Big influence, definitely. Now I would say Dave Tipper is a big influence. He's from the UK. He's been around for years and decades. Really, really amazing, really prolific. Just lots of work. Also, I could cite my friend Sky, or Jade Cicada. That's his project. And yeah, because we worked a lot from like pretty early on. He's a Berkeley graduate, and he taught me like a lot of what I know. Like pretty much everything that I know is like from him. And yeah, that was kind of he's a formative artist for me. Also, like in terms of hip hop, I would say like Jay Dilla, that's an obvious one. Boards of Canada is one of my biggest influences, and then maybe like Koan Sound. Those are some things you kind of cite.
Okay, I want to get into Boards of Canada because I've tried to get into their music, but I don't think I've hit like the right album. What is the album to look at?
There's so many. Because for me, it's like that's the one like instantaneous grab that I always do if I'm gonna go to like a record store or something. Is like go and find like the collective EPs that they have, because they're just like some random ones, like Left Side Drive. Like it has tunes from like their full-length albums and everything, right? But it's just like the setting that they give them is something entirely different. So on Left Side Drive, I'm pretty sure Davey and Cowboy's on there. That's the one that like everyone knows. That's kind of their classic tune. And that's really one of the ones that is, it's so beautiful, because it just like builds this kind of like bright, dense, and like distorted guitar space all the way up, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it comes to this one moment where everything just kind of washes out, and it's just like this tiny little tremolo guitar. It's almost like a western kind of tremolo guitar, and it's just like a really beautiful. He's just playing an E, like a simple E chord on a guitar, but it's just like this chilling space. I love that tune. I have a little bit of a record collection. It is nothing large. I've got friends with way larger record collections, but I collect a little bit of vinyl. I was collecting CDs for a while just because you can go through like CD bins and find like some small things. And there's always like good like sound effects and stuff at that kind of size. But I also collect like 45s and 7-inch vinyl. And those are like just good like one-off singles. You can like sample one of those. There's like plenty of variety you can get from that. It's only like 99 cents.
Do you have an example of like you sampling one of the records or anything like that?
I actually might. It's called Dos Flamingos.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you sample on this track?
It was some disco tune, and I was trying to make drums where they were vinyl drums, but they didn't sound, vinyl-y enough. What I really love about like vinyl percussion is kind of like the texture that happens on top, like the nice like sizzly high-end kind of stuff. So I had a bunch of samples that I recorded of me eating crackers. And I just decided I was going to put that on the snare and then just kind of design it in a sense to where it would become a part of the snare. Like I was just, I basically used just like distortion and compression to like shape the high end of me eating a cracker into like a regular kind of vinyl snare. And it kind of just gave it some more crunch. I also used, on this one, I think I used like comic book punch sounds, because those ones have like really nice impacts. But yeah, that was kind of how I built the drums for this track. This is 2 years old now. This is from May of 2016.
Gotcha.
Is that 2 years? One thing I could have mentioned earlier, I sampled Kate Bush.
Okay.
That was one thing. I pulled that from like a Japanese release of a Kate Bush vinyl. I don't know what was different, but it was clear, like it was an untouched, like it was a still wrapped up vinyl, which was really nice.
How many tracks do you think you have in total?
In terms of release tracks, one personal solo track. I have one EP that I did with Sky, and that came out probably 4 years ago. Yeah, I had one EP that I did, and that was like kind of the end of freshman year. That was 2014, and that was kind of like a big step for me, just because it kind of got pretty good acclaim within like certain circles. It was like a Beatport top 10 type thing when Beatport still mattered to anyone in electronic music, I guess. But yeah, it was just kind of like a really eye-opening and great experience. Like there was a lot of good feedback from that one, and I think that was kind of when I noticed like that I really want to do electronic music. Okay, so that whole part is just like some really simple sine chords, you know. It's supposed to sound like kind of like a Rhodes piano almost.
Sure.
And I really like to play with like an ambient space. So this is just like kind of a couple different reverbs, like really subtle delays. You know, like I want to be able to create a space with those chords. I just want to kind of build the setting kind of slowly with that part.
I feel like a tension kind of rising up just a tad bit. You know, it's,
yeah, towards the end I'm using like reversed reverb to get like a huge like swell into the next part. And it's like this bright reverb. So it's this part. And that whole part is that's actually, I record a lot of Foley whenever I'm home, like whenever I'm not on campus. I live in Houston, and I'll just have my field recorder. It's like your HS6, and I just kind of take it around my house and I look for things. And sometimes I'll find like, you know, one kind of simple percussive thing, but sometimes it's really nice to find something that's just like kind of melodic. What I did, that was actually my childhood teddy bear. Like I found it, and
really?
I was like super excited. Like I played with the music box and I just played the whole thing out. I was like, this is awesome. But then I noticed I could like wait for the motor to stop and then just kind of push it past one note, and I could just play, you know, because it plays chords and stuff. So I just find a point where it would play a single note, and I got a point where it plays a single note. And then I found a point where it plays a fifth, and then I had like a little fifth melody that I could play with, and I had a fourth, and I had a fourth one I could play with. So I could kind of really build like natural, like the way that they relate to each other, instead of like having two digital representations of that note. Like I had like, instead of just playing a fifth with the single note that I had, I can get like little fifths and stuff. I have like a lot more like control over the texture whenever it's an actual physical object, which I really love.
We talked about, it's strange, we talked about evocative objects in our technoculture class.
Yeah, exactly.
That being in your song, there's a really deep root inside of this track already. And you know, most people wouldn't even know. Like there is a lot of texture there, but I would have no idea.
Yeah, and that's actually why, I don't know, that's why I like my style of production, where like kind of the focus is the technical framework, like seeing how far I can push like certain elements of like the technical side, but I really want to have like this kind of emotional, creative side that like no one else can replicate. And I feel like that's kind of the point of music for me, is like I want to be able to write the music that I want to write, but I also want to be kind of like pushing the envelope in terms of like production. But yeah, then there's the rest of this part. This is where the percussion kind of comes in. For the most part, actually, most of it is synthesized. The kick, a lot of what I do is kind of like this hybrid point of like synthesis and then sampling. The kick and snare both are pretty much entirely synthetic. I kind of put like one layer of, maybe a sample on there. I'm pretty sure the kick is entirely dry. It's just like a synthetic kick through and through. The snare has like some kind of like hip hop snare layer, which is what I like to do, is like kind of have like a very kind of cold, electronic snare, and then give it kind of that like hip hop flavor. But a lot of that first section, like the hi-hats and everything, those are all just like single recordings that I'm like mixing all at once there. So I kind of have like more like leeway with the space, I guess. But then towards that second section, I bring in like a drum break, which is kind of like already, like the entirety of like a drum bit within another song kind of chopped out. It's like a hip hop trick where you just take a break beat and you just focus on like what those drums can sound like in your mix almost. And that's like a big part of like that build, is like the little delayed bits of break, which is a lot of fun. Other than that, there's a layered melody with that, the teddy bear melody, I guess, the little music box melody. And it's just it's a sine wave. It's like a really simple, like I just wanted it to like reinforce like the fundamental note every time that the other part plays. And it kind of starts doing some counterpoint, like it starts playing like higher and lower from like the original melody. Kind of gives it like a little B section kind of thing. And this part is the breakdown right here. Kind of get another groove in with the hats.
That hard lead kind of reminds me of some. I don't have a big experience with electronic music, but it does remind me of sort of like a harsh Aphex Twin lead.
Yeah.
How it's just like piercing your ear a little bit.
That was kind of actually that's a good like call in terms of design, because it's a lot of like resonant, like low pass type things, and that's kind of like that's kind of called an acid sound almost. And Aphex Twin does a whole lot of that kind of like piercing kind of sound. It's just like movement around in the higher frequencies that I really like. I kind of just went crazy with that sound. Just kind of goofy. Like I like kind of, it's called sample and hold. It's just like choosing like moments based on what is that, eighth notes, which is I think that's a good way to like write a lot of bass lines.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it gives you like all kinds of different like expression with it, I guess, instead of just having like a simple bass line going on. I like to be able to have like all kinds of motion, and it's nice. Kind of keeps the groove. Has like kind of some weird rhythms going over it. Now that I've kind of like computer generated all kinds of different timbres of that sound. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like pretty happy with this tune. This is one of the tunes that I did in June. And I've just kind of been working on it, cleaning it up ever since.
Nice.
But yeah, that's start to finish. I'm happy with that one. I'm kind of working on a lot. I've been working on a couple Wonky Llama tunes. That was the first EP that I did with Sky. We've actually got a whole lot of tunes, and that's always a treat because I've been able to like fly out to like the studios that he's been working in, and everything just sounds way better in there. And like mixing down a tune with him is a way different experience than just like sitting down and doing it alone, because we're just kind of capable of like bouncing ideas off each other and kind of creating something that neither of us could do alone, which is really nice.
Yeah, having someone else can make it so it's not like on your shoulders. You're kind of dependable for releasing something.
Yeah.
If you're working with someone else.
Exactly. And that's, I don't know. I just really like being able to work because he's got an amazing setup. He's like worked really hard to get to a point where like he has like an apartment studio, and it's like it's really nice, like really well done. And he's actually coming down after the performance to help me set up my room with the same kind of like acoustic paneling. Like we just spent a bunch of money just getting acoustic paneling so that I can kind of have the same thing within my apartment. Yeah. I feel like the overall basic perception of electronic music is really skewed. I feel like a lot of what people see is just kind of like the, 1, 2, 3, 4 jump, kind of like preschooler. I got to guide you through what 4/4 is, like.
Could you define that a little bit more? So
You want me to name drop?
No. Well, I mean, what do you mean? 1, 2, 3, 4 jump type
just
of thing.
like so like the way that a song is composed for them is like you got a big drum opening. It's probably like pretty long, pretty lengthy, and then out of nowhere this kind of melody comes in, and then people are interested because you hear a melody and it's kind of catchy, and then a snare drum comes in. It's like duh 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 duh, and then you double time that duh 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 duh, and then you double time that, and then people are like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. No, it's not. It's really not at all. It's so simple. It's so painful.
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, I don't know. Just hearing that and then hearing like the 1, 2, 3 jump or whatever, it's like you're guiding a bit. It's like elementary school, music class. I don't know, it's garbage. I feel like for me, when I listen to electronic music, it's much more about, well, for me, it's like I'm very much on the production side, but like I just want to hear something that I haven't heard. Like I listen to a lot of different stuff. I don't listen to just electronic music. Like I said, like it started with chip tunes. That's pretty electronic, but like I had a really long hip hop phase. I kind of had like an indie phase. I was doing like indie tunes for a while. That was kind of short lived, but I don't know, people to look out for, I guess, or people that I'm like really interested in currently. I'm pretty sure Andrew Bear is putting out something soon. It's been years. I've been kind of expecting it. John Hawkins is, of course, like a very large artist. His production is insane, so good. Camo and Crooked, they just put out a full length last year, and it was so good, start to finish. Like it's got like all kinds of poppy vocals that I'm not really into, but in terms of like composition as like a whole record, super great, super clean. Everything that they do is always super clean. I think a lot of it, yeah, because I feel like the importance really is in the instrumentation. Because I think I've had this conversation recently with someone about just using vocals in music. It's something that I'm definitely not opposed to, but I would really want it to be like an integral part of the tune. Like I don't feel like I have any sort of like lyrical, I don't have any sort of lyrical genius that I can really hand to someone, I don't feel like I have like a whole lot of a story to tell in terms of lyricism. Like I feel like there's a whole lot that is left undone, if you don't kind of focus on like the composition of the tune itself. And that's what I really enjoy, is just like putting something together that has like, intricacies and uncertainty that people, become accustomed to, I guess.
Are you looking for your audience to sort of be interested, or like to groove along with it, or like scared? Like what's your intent on your audience? Does it depend on the track, I guess?
It's definitely, I guess it depends on the track, but I want my tunes to be enjoyable. For me, it's like, I want to play with the same way in melody, or, just in harmony, you would want to play with, harmony and dissonance. I want to be able to play with like expectations as if it were that same kind of tension and release. Like I want there to be able to have like tense moments, but then there are moments where kind of loosens up and it's this much larger like melodic section. And I want to be able to just like take that energy and kind of spiral it and do things that people aren't going to expect. See, usually I do a lot of like DJ sets. Like that's kind of the thing. I did a lot of shows in Houston, where I'm from, and that was always great. You know, starting out, actually, my first show was kind of terrible. It was at a little dinky bar on Main Street. It's called the Red Room, and we were promised the upstairs. Like the promoter that was bringing me out, he promised us the upstairs, like this huge balcony. It would have been awesome, but then whoever was renting it out before us just like threw more money at the owner and was just like, give us like a couple more hours. So we were stuck with the downstairs, and it's like this tiny little room, and it's got all these like classic paintings in it. It was kind of nice, but like the table was really low, and the sound in there was awful, and it was right after a flood in Houston. So what was going to be like $15 admission was going to be free, and so glad they made it free because probably like 10 people came. It was a terrible time. But yeah, I played a lot of shows in Houston, and that was a lot of fun. In terms of when I do shows here, I kind of like to make it a performative element, because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand, like, I guess the concept of like just writing a tune, you know, and being able to play it and being able to like have the other elements of it. Like if I had like an hour-long set here, I would be able to, you know, do a DJ set and like keep it interesting for people. But I kind of want to make it performative when I'm here, so what I do is I, you know, split things out, and then I just, you know, play along with it. I want to be able to actually like perform my tunes, and I did that once for Loaded Plinth, the first one, the ISO event, and I wrote tunes specifically for it, and I really did kind of pander to just being able to like, you know, show that I can play keys and stuff. You know, I was like really kind of forming my performance around that. But now I'm like deciding I can kind of take, you know, what I would do in a DJ set and what I would do in a performative set and keep them in one place, you know, and like hopefully still keep people interested. It's like kind of out of left field ideas for a lot of them.
This has been Daily Flow, Episode 1 with Will Russek. You can find Will on SoundCloud. His artist name is Schmoop. Thank you for listening.
Wow.